Hello and welcome. This tutorial series will focus on editing patches on the Alesis Andromeda. In this video, I will introduce the basics for creating and saving a program mode patch, sound modules, and theory of the audio path layout. Having a basic knowledge of synthesizer oscillators, filters, LFOs, and envelopes will help get the most out of programming this instrument. First glance of the Andromeda's 72 knobs and 114 buttons is a beckoning call to go full-on honey badger right away. This approach often yields unexpected results, even for seasoned veterans. The Andromeda should be approached with a great deal of finesse. By design, many of the controls have a very wide range, resulting in extremely wild changes accompanying very small changes in value. In fact, many of the parameters have been designed with such a wide range that can greatly exceed normal limits for extreme results. Some parameters have more than one way to access them, such as the envelope 1 amount. There are many pre-configured mods, such as vibrato. Once you're aware of them, you won't need to unnecessarily expend an open modulation route to perform the function. Also, some pre-configured mods, such as filter feedback, require more than one condition to be met in order to activate the feature. Don't worry. With some patience, I will help you command vast and otherworldly sounds the Andromeda has to offer. Make sure the synth is tuned by pressing the Auto-Tune button once to access the Auto-Tune page. Press Auto-Tune again to execute. Once auto-tune is performed, the Andromeda will continue to maintain tuning using algorithms that run in the background continuously. Some users choose to defeat this setting in favor of drifting oscillators, but I'll keep the background tuning enabled. A synthesizer audio path can be modeled as a set of blocks or function groups that progress from left to right, starting with performance control sources like keyboard, arpeggiator, and wheels, which trigger oscillators and/or LFOs, then filtering the signal, which may be contoured by envelopes before proceeding to the output stage, which may be in line with some final effects processing. The sound of the Andromeda is arranged in function groups called modules. Modules are organized on the front panel such that the function blocks generally occur starting from the left, the performance controls, and progressing to modules on the right, the voice output. It is critical to know that on the Andromeda there are several points in the sound path where audio levels are mixed. They are arranged in the three modules: pre-filter, post-filter, and voice mix. The pre-filter mix module is where levels of the oscillators are set, where the external input level is set, and ring modulation. The post-filter mix module allows flexible and comprehensive mixing of the two filter amounts. The voice mix module is the final output section with controls for overall patch volume, panning, and output jack assignments the patch will use. The effects module is the last section in the audio chain and can be disabled. Hit the Program button to see the current program. Select programs by using the tens buttons and the ones buttons in conjunction. Many times you will see things show up in the lower part of the display. These are soft controls, which correspond to the knobs and buttons just below them. The directory soft control button will show the names of the 10 programs all at once. Use the bank button to access factory and user banks, each having 127 patches. Write patches using the Store button. A soft control will appear to give opportunity to rename the patch. Compare your edited patch with the Compare button. The Manual button will reset all of the parameters according to the front panel current knob settings. Many times I don't find this function as useful as it might seem. To make an initialized factory patch, find the patch you don't mind losing, press New Program Soft Control button, then the Store button. Initializing won't overwrite the current patch until the patch is saved. By default, turning any knob will automatically call up that module settings in the display. As mentioned, it takes some finesse using the knobs to set values. Most often, small changes in values will result in great changes in sound on the Andromeda. When the finer degree of control is required, use the knob to get close to the value, then use the increment-decrement buttons to fine-tune the values. It is also possible to call up any module settings without handling the knobs. Each module contains a view button for doing just that. The Andromeda is absolutely littered with modulation buttons. These buttons give you instant access to modulation in absolutely all of the modules, whenever you want. If the little light next to them is lit, the modulation is active. When dark, the modulation is inactive. Now I'll give a brief overview of the modules. More in-depth examination will come in future tutorials. Let's jump right into the oscillator modules and their relationship to the pre-filter mix module. First, it's helpful to know how the two oscillators are being mixed together. Click the pre-filter mix module view button. The oscillators, sub-oscillators, noise, and ring modulation levels can be adjusted all from this page. The most common misstep new users make is pushing up levels to maximum. Remember, many parameters have been designed to greatly exceed normal limits. Generally, one should start by mixing oscillator levels at around 35. I find that when they exceed about 50% of their levels, they begin to tax the overhead. Keep the sub-oscillators limited to half their main oscillator levels, otherwise the signal may get drowned in the sub-frequencies. Add subtle character by limiting sub-oscillator levels to very small amounts. Interestingly, noise is an external circuit, as differentiated from the main oscillator circuit, and therefore requires the external input to be turned on before audible noise can be heard. Bring in some noise if desired, and choose from white, pink, and red. The two oscillators have many similar controls for the wave shapes, modulations, pulse width modulation, and tuning pots. To modify the initial pulse width, activate that oscillator's view button. The current oscillator being added is listed in the top corner of the screen. Next, I'll be looking at the filter and post-filter modules. When the filter 2 input is set to mix, both of the filters are operating in parallel. That just means they are both putting out sound independent of what the other is doing. Once again, it's best to see the filter mix amounts to get a sense for how they're being used. Select the post-filter mix view button. Filter 1 has low pass, high pass, and band pass, which are all concurrently available around the same cutoff frequency. The combination of low pass and high pass is considered the notch setting for this filter. This will come in handy later on. Filter 2 is only a low pass having a single amount. Pre-filter level controls the level of non-filtered audio, and that's the beauty of Andromeda, being able to mix all sorts of audio together that has come from completely different audio paths. So okay, once the level of one or both of the filters are turned up in the post-filter module, you'll be able to hear audible changes to the filter module settings. The layout for both are virtually identical. Each filter has controls for the cutoff frequency, resonance, envelope 2 amount, and key tracking. There are also 3 possible modulation routes available for each filter. I will cover filter modules in more depth in a future video. Next in the audio food chain comes envelopes, as hopefully you're aware are dedicated to providing the dynamic contour of the sound's final pitch, filter amount, and loudness or amplitude. It's also nice to know the envelopes can be repurposed to just about any destination on the Andromeda. The properties for each of these 3 kinds of envelopes are basically the same for all. By default, they have these stages: attack, 2 decay stages, sustain, and 2 release stages. By adjusting certain time or level parameters to 0, you can simplify the number of stages if desired. Each stage also has a special curvilinear contours, and not just basic linear ones. Each envelope can have a delayed onset if so desired. There are also a wide variety of triggering methods that I won't go into right now. Envelopes also have the ability to loop selected stages as many times as you specify. Once again, there are 3 possible modulations for each envelope. Andromeda has 3 low-frequency oscillators. Each LFO can also be a destination via a single modulation button for each. Andromeda has 2 separate editable effects processor sections, one for common digital effects such as chorus, delay, and reverb, and one for analog-generated distortion. Think of the effects section as if it were a standalone processor strapped across the synthesizer's main outputs. As before, it is possible to send greater input levels than the effects section can handle, which leads to audible clipping. In this case, clipping contains undesirable artifacts, so be careful to watch for the clip indicator. Andromeda has a module dedicated to the system clock. The clock settings will control the timing for the arpeggiator, sequencer, and any LFOs that are used to synchronize with the clock. It is even possible to modulate the clock timing. Now you have been exposed to some of the vast features and powerful concepts on the Alesis Andromeda. Join me for my next video, which I will cover oscillators in more depth. And thanks for watching.